So we're off to kind of a rough start today. Promise you I'm going to make it right and get rolling. That was a rookie mistake that I just made, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, we will get into the Commanders and what a run attack this has become. They are the top rushing team in the NFL. They have rolled up 782 yards, 7 touchdowns on the ground, including 2 from Ja'Cory Merritt, which are Krosky. I always pronounce that wrong. It's Krosky Merritt, and they call him Bill. He goes by Bill. But they're averaging 156 yards a game, and Bill is the number 1 running back in the league in yards per carry, 6.6 yards per attempt, 283 yards on 43 carries. He has been a revelation here. The sense I get is that they would like to give him the ball more. They'd like to have him on the field more, but there are other elements of his game that they're concerned about. And I think that if you look at his development, you have to say, well, find a way to get him the ball, because when you get him the ball, he makes things happen. Yeah, he doesn't have the experience of Austin Eckler. He can't do all the other things that a savvy veteran like Eckler can do, but maybe you sacrifice some of that. You chip a little bit more with a tight end or whatever you have to do, but jeez, you got to give this guy the ball. 6.6 yards a carry, and he looks like one of those third down backs that maybe you throw to him out of the backfield. He comes in on passing downs. No, he runs really well between the tackles. Really an interesting guy, too, in that last year he's at Arizona. Makes, this is kind of the way things are done now in college football. Made a couple of stops, wasn't recruited out of high school, winds up going to Alabama State, transfers to New Mexico, I believe, and then winds up at Arizona, and he can't play because they found out he played too many games as a freshman, didn't qualify for a redshirt year. And said, okay, I'll deal with that. I'll stay on the team, work on the scout team. I know I'm not going to play in the games. And when my opportunity comes to show NFL scouts what I can do, he did it. And here he is as a 7th-round pick. And I think that the excitement over what he can be in a month or so or 2 months is tremendous. I mean, if this is going to be a run-based team with the threat that you have with Jaden Daniels, great. I don't think that's going to be that big of an issue. And, yeah, you're paying Terry McLaurin a lot of money, and that's what, sets up the long pass, the play action. And you get him back. You get Noah Brown back this week, and Dan Quinn said it's possible that both of them are going to play, along with you get a Pro Bowl guard back, possibly in Sam Cosmi. Man, yeah, it's really, looking up. This is a week-to-week league. This is how it goes. You lose in Atlanta, you look bad doing it, and it's, oh, my God, the sky is falling. And then you get a win on the road against a good team, and now everything is coming up roses. So as Tom Libero calls Jaden Daniel, the warmth of the sun is shining on this team right now. I'll tell you another team that's getting the warmth of the sun, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And for all the hype for Trevor Lawrence coming out of Clemson, he has been, I guess, overall, not a bust, but somewhat of a disappointment. He did, of course, win a playoff game, but, they've had some ups and downs there. And last night they get the Kansas City Chiefs coming in, and they beat them. And they beat them with an enormous play by Trevor Lawrence. It's it's kind of a do-or-die situation. They've got to score a touchdown to win this game. A field goal's not going to do it. Time is running out. And Lawrence goes back to pass, trips over a lineman, trips again, gets up, and manages to take it in the end zone. Jacksonville hangs on for a 31-28 victory. It was not planned what happened there, but he dives into the end zone with 23 seconds left to give Liam Cohen, and from what I can tell, not Jewish, Liam Cohen, Cohen, coach of the Jaguars, an enormous signature victory for his team from the play that wasn't supposed to happen the way it did.
What was going through your head on that last touchdown?
Throw it away. No, I mean, because, when he got stepped on and he's coming out of it and you're like, oh, my gosh, throw it away so we could have another down. What an individual effort. I mean, obviously, tough moment where I can only imagine where he was at in that moment on the ground. But to get up, break 3 tackles or whatever it was, 2 tackles, and shed some dude off and go running in the end. I mean, that's an unbelievable individual effort. Yeah, we'd love it to be cleaner and just make it a nice executed play. But at the end of the day, it's about winning. And I'm proud of the toughness that he showed at the end of that game.
Yeah, when you make a play like that, there's a P word that's thrown around. It's called poise. In this case, it was actually panic. This is Trevor Lawrence talking about it with Laura Rutledge.
Let's start with your game-winning touchdown run. You get your foot stepped on, you're falling down, and somehow you score. What was it like from your perspective?
Just panic, sheer panic on the ground, we didn't have any timeouts, got stepped on coming out, and I was like, I got to get up, and I was just going to throw it out of bounds to stop the clock, and then there was really no one around me, so went and made a play.
You also made an incredible play, the throw to Brian Thomas Jr. He made a great play on his end, too, that really set up that touchdown drive. What can you say about the way that when it mattered most in this game, your guys stepped up for you and you did the same?
A lot of guys stepped up, and it takes all of us. The defense, special teams had some big moments. Brian staying in it. We had on the drive before, I threw a third down completion to Travis, and we kicked the field goal, and he ran the go route and told me, hey, I beat him. I got him on the go. So we came back to a little double move, and I knew if I got one-on-one, I was going to take a shot with him. I trust him.
We've talked tonight about how this could be a defining win for your team going forward. How can you build on this?
Just keep doing what we're doing. I mean, it's obviously our process is working. We got to stick to it, come to work every day, trying to get better. I think we've done a great job of that, and there's still so much more that we can improve on. Like even offensively today, had some turnovers. We had a turnover on the 1 yard line that was on me. So, I mean, there's things that we can build on, but we're finding ways to win against a really good football team tonight. So that's all you can ask for.
Pretty good birthday present. You got some cake waiting at home or anything?
Yeah, we got a lot of cakes at the house, so we should have plenty to choose from.
Yeah, there was a cake waiting for him at the stadium when he went on with Scott Van Pelt after the game. We'll get to that in the 10 o'clock hour. Lawrence, 18 of 25, 221 yards, touchdown and interception. Best throw, what they were talking about, the 33-yarder to Brian Thomas on third down on that winning drive. And you look at their division. Look at the teams tied at the top, 4-1. Jacksonville and Indianapolis. It's kind of the redemption quarterback story in that you got Trevor Lawrence, who people were ready to throw in the towel on, and then he pulls off a signature win last night. And Daniel Jones, discarded by the Giants after they'd given him a contract extension, taking him in the first round, same draft where the Dwayne Haskins was drafted here. They kept him around in Minnesota for last year, and he signs with Indianapolis, wins the job, and they're tied at the top of the division with the Jacksonville Jaguars. You just hard to figure this, and now Kansas City has already lost 3 games, and you got Patrick Mahomes saying, "Yeah, we've already lost too many." Yeah, I mean, a good year for Kansas City is 14-3. They're not going to run the table from here, so could be the signs of the end of the dynasty. We'll see. I mean, they're still a good team. A lot of football left to play. The league changes week to week, and just when it looks like you're out of it, you're not necessarily out of it. So maybe they get in even as a wild card. They win on the road, which they've done before, and they're back in the Super Bowl. But the streak of 3 straight Super Bowl appearances is certainly in jeopardy right now. More on this. Buck and Aikman, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman always talk to Scott Van Pelt after these Monday night games, and this was their wrap-up of what they had seen with the defending AFC champs, 3-time defending AFC champs, falling to what has been, and NFL also ran for years, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I look at the stat sheet here in front of me, and to see 13 penalties for 109 yards, a pick six that went, 99, which was an amazing play. It's just awfully unusual to see Kansas City kind of contribute to what ultimately is their own demise, isn't it?
Yeah, I was actually going to go there late in the game because it just felt like this is such an atypical game for what we've come to expect from Andy Reid's Kansas City Chiefs. It just was one of those nights. I mean, the penalties piled up. The special teams penalties were killers.
Right.
You get the kickoff out of bounds. It helps to start the drive at the 40. You know, it was just one of those nights, I think, for Kansas City. And like you said, one of those nights for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was, for them, a thing of beauty. And who knows what this launches them into being as they go through the rest of this season. This is a big win for Liam Cohen's team.
without question, first-year coach, and they're 4-1. And Troy, you made the point coming out of the 2-minute timeout that this is the kind of drive that can change a season. And I'm thinking, yeah, but I'm interested in your perspective. I mean, when you win a game this way against that team who has been the yardstick against which all others are measured in the AFC, what's your sense of what this means for them in the short and long term?
Well, this is one of those defining games. I mean, the season's going to determine what ultimately this game meant. But I think that if they can continue to do what they've shown up to this point, like all good teams, whether it was the teams I was a part of, the Kansas City Chiefs, or whoever, you look back and you say, that was the game that got us going. This organization, in large part, has been on the map for quite some time, and this is a game that when they look back, if they ultimately are able to go on and do what they're capable of doing and what they hope to do, this is that game, because it was a measuring stick by all accounts. And to be able to be here at home, the crowd was excited to be watching, to see what they were going to be able to do. And as Trevor Lawrence said at the end of the game, it wasn't perfect, but no game is, but they did what they had to do at the end, and this is a big win.
I agree, and I'm interested, Joe, in your perspective as well, just on how much of a magnifier it is because of who it was against. I mean, I'm down here at field level, and people are excited, but they've got to be scared to death because there's time on the clock, and we've seen what that man can do. Troy, you made the point it's not over. Joe, the magnifier that are the Chiefs on this night, how do you see it?
Yeah, I see it the same way. I mean, this was an impressive night. I mean, they're down 14-0.
Right.
And nothing was really working. They were down 7-0, and then they're knocking on the door, and the Chiefs make a couple of stops on Lawrence, trying to run it in, then trying to go over the top. Then they take it down 93 yards, or 97 yards, and end up getting it into the end zone. It's 14-0, and you're thinking an answer's got to come right now. And they kept answering, and that play by Devin Lloyd was phenomenal. And then they got the bad call on the no call on the pass interference that led to an interception that led to the game-tying touchdown. There were a lot of things that I think Jacksonville in years past, and Troy was making this point during the game, might have folded the tents, and they didn't, and they kept coming, and they end up winning this game. That's why I think it's got a little extra oomph to it here tonight.
Top three teams in the AFC. Buffalo, yeah, of course. Indianapolis and Jacksonville. All three teams 4-1. You got to figure Buffalo's got staying power. The other two we'll see, but they have been great stories in the first 5 weeks of the season. Nobody would have figured this. And you got the Kansas City Chiefs, as SVP said, the team that you measure yourself against, and you come back from 14-0 to get it done. Yeah, bizarre play to win the game, but, you also had a 99-yard pick six in this game. It was really an incredible finish for a game that really didn't have the kind of buildup that most of these Monday night games do, because it's the Kansas City Chiefs against Jacksonville Jaguars. But what an enormous win for them. What's coming up at noon today? Another decision from LeBron James. It's been over 15 years since we had the last one, July 8th, 2010. That was just awful. The oily Jim Gray sitting there with LeBron and it was at a boys' club, allegedly, for charity. He's sitting there in that, kind of red and white checkered shirt, and he says, "I'm taking my talents to South Beach." And then the obnoxious news conference that followed with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Not one, not two, not three. And they wound up winning two, and then LeBron went to Cleveland and soothed the bad feelings he left behind with the decision, won a championship there, won another one with the Lakers. Well, yesterday, LeBron put out a 9-second video on social media that showed him walking to an empty seat to sit across from an unidentified person who was already seated. And he is calling it the Decision 2. The shirt he's wearing is very similar to the one he wore when he announced he was leaving the Cavaliers. He's calling this the decision of all decisions. Noon today, Eastern time. What could it be? Could it be that he's announcing this is going to be his last season? Could be. I think he is one that would actually lap up the retirement tour thing, where he goes from arena to arena and they shower him with gifts and rocking chairs and things like that. He did say the other day that he isn't waiting on his youngest son, Bryce James, to join the league, which would mean he would have to play this year and next year to play with him. He's still got Bronny James playing. I put that in air quotes. He's mostly a G League player, but still is in the Lakers organization. It could be that. It could be something to advertise something. He's been involved in Taco Tuesday. Maybe it's something to do with National Taco Day today. Could be something for the league. This is year 80 for the NBA, and he's about to start his 23rd season. Could be that. Could be a new partnership with Amazon, something that he's been working on in recent years. Who knows? But whatever it is, LeBron knows how to create attention with these things. I can't imagine that he's in any way looking to leave the league right now. I'd be very surprised if this is a retirement announcement. And if it is, I'm not sure it's going to stick. It didn't stick with Tom Brady. It didn't stick with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar years ago. I think he announced his retirement 4 or 5 years before he actually did. So I have my doubts about retirement, but, it does spur interest. And that decision that he made in 2010, well, it was a mess for him personally. Ultimately, it kind of worked out. He got his couple of titles in Miami. He went back to Cleveland, took care of unfinished business there, and then went on to the Lakers. I think he wants to stay in Los Angeles. I can't imagine he's going to play for another team before he retires. He's got a lot of business interests there, and he's involved in the film industry and so forth. But it does create some interest when he puts it out on social media. Hey, the decision of all decisions coming today at noon. I'll be off the air by 11 o'clock, but I'll have some follow-up on that tomorrow. Yesterday, Dan Quinn doing his usual Monday meeting with reporters, updating injuries. We'll get to what he thinks about Terry McLaurin's status for Monday night and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Yet another reason the NFL just crushes in the ratings. This from Adam Schefter this morning. After last night's Jaguars win, there now have been 17 games this season with the go-ahead score in the final minute of regulation, the most through 5 weeks of the season since the 1970 merger. I would say this, there have been 2 rounds of expansion since then, so you got 4 more teams in the league than we had in 1970, if that makes a difference. But the league is constantly tweaking the rules, and they want this. They understand what an entertainment product this is, and it's not an accident that this is happening. That's the way the league wants it. And the fact that you have a game that everybody's talking about today with the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Kansas City Chiefs tells you that every city has an opportunity every year. You don't know what your season is going to look like. I mean, who thought the Colts would be here with Daniel Jones at this point? And then you had a lot of doubting going on around here. Jaden Daniels didn't play against Atlanta. They looked bad and lost, and now they rebound this week, and they get a big win, and there's big optimism heading into the Chicago game on Monday night. So that's why this league is a part of the reason why it's so incredibly successful and owns television. It's basically propping up network television. That's the reality of that. All right, Dan Quinn with his usual Monday news conference. He meets with reporters by Zoom, and the big question this week will, as it has been for the last few weeks, is about injuries. They have Jaden Daniels back. He looks fine. He managed to win without 2 of his top receivers. I mean, Deebo Samuel has been tremendous for them, and Bill Krosky-Merritt has been great as well, coming out of the backfield, catching passes and, of course, running the football. But you want to have Terry McLaurin back. You want to have Noah Brown back, and you'd like to get Sam Cosmi in there as soon as possible. Hasn't played this year because of the knee injury he suffered in the playoff game at Detroit. So this was Quinn on the status of the 3 of them, as we now have an extra day, which should be helpful. But getting those 3 guys back on the field for the Chicago game.
Yeah, we're optimistic, JP, and we'll have more information as the week goes on to see where they're at with he and Noah and Sam Cosmi and a few other guys that are, kind of trending in the right way. We'll make sure we take all the right steps, just like we do with all the guys. If they're able to, fully express how they play and do their thing, then we're there. And if not, we'll have to keep waiting. But we won't decide yet. But with having an extra day, that never hurts, JP, going into it. But as we get, a few more days from now, I think I'll have a better sense for if it's able to be done and what it looks like and how they're responding to it.
Yeah, it could even be a game-time decision because they haven't put anybody on IR, any of those three. So we may not even know until Monday afternoon whether any or all three of them are going to be able to play in the game. I talked about this a lot yesterday, but that second quarter fumble by Johnston was enormous in this game. And, you talk about one play maybe changing a season, but certainly a game. The Hail Mary last year against the Bears, you could make the argument that turned the season. They were a team that was playing well, but the difference between the 6-2 that they got to on that last play and the 5-3 turned out to be huge because after beating the Giants, they went on to lose their next three. And had they not had the Hail Mary, I think that the picture would have looked a lot different than it did heading into that Thanksgiving weekend where they wound up blowing out the Titans here. So as Quinn has had a chance to look at the tape, it just reinforces his opinion that this game truly was turned on one play.
And that was Quan Martin, to me, on the forced fumble and the Marshawn fumble recovery. Thought it energized our teams, and every once in a while you see a play, and there it is. That's the one. That's something that needed to take place. And sometimes we can expect where it's going to happen or who it's from, but often it's even better when it's kind of the perfect person to do that. I thought Quan really led all day with his play, with his voice, and everyone fed off of that. So it made a lot of sense that he was the one that I thought really set it off. We ended up scoring on that play after that fumble recovery. I thought that was the one. That was the play that set it off for this game, for our team, the energy that it brought. And just thought I'd bring that up. Oftentimes I talk so much about winning time moments, and every once in a while there's just a play that, sets off the direction of how the game's going to go for the entire team. And I thought that was the play in this game.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it looked like the Chargers were about to turn this into a blowout. It's a 10-0 game. They're having their way going up and down the field. Washington's going 3 and out. They're not getting anything going. Jaden looks tentative with the knee brace. And they got a touchdown out of that drive, 17-0. I'm not sure they come back. They probably don't come back the way they did, 27 unanswered points. And they turned a game where they were getting dominated into a game that they dominated and went on to win. Really incredible turnaround, and it was just for one play. I was talking, if you're just jumping in your car, I was talking a little in the open about Bill Krosky-Merritt, who is leading the league in yards per carry among running backs. A couple of quarterbacks a little higher yards per carry, but he has had 31, those running backs with more than 31 attempts this year, 6.6 yards per carry. Leads all qualified running backs in that, and in just 43 carries, he has 283 yards. And the Commanders are leading the league in rushing with 782 yards through 5 games. That's 156 yards a game. And, most of us are looking at these numbers and going, well, why is he only getting 43 carries in the first 5 games? Why, averaging 7.9 yards a carry on Sunday, does he only get the ball 14 times? It appears that they're a little nervous about putting him out there in an every down situation because of the other things that are required of running backs, not just running the ball. But when analyzing and looking at the tape and seeing what he's seeing, this is Quinn on Bill.
He's got very good vision, John, inside, but he can really put his foot in the ground and break tackles. There's an element of vision and cuts. I can remember even all the way back through training camp. There was another play, and I thought he excels really on the inside plays where now he can see things quickly, make a violent cut, and then get north-south. So that's what I see from him. I love this whole running back room. If I could just share for a moment, like the support, and the energy that came from Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichol on the sideline. Like, man, these guys back each other like crazy. It's a really cool group.
Yeah, they put both those guys in. They both got some playing time. But I would like to see Bill become the every down back. He gives them such a different dimension, and the combination of putting him now with Jaden Daniels back. In fact, this was Quinn on what it means to have Jaden in the running game, not just the passing game as the quarterback, but to have him there as part of the big picture.
It does make you defend the 11th player. It's not just a handoff where, a middle field player or somebody else can now go into. So carrying out the fakes and staying alive into that spot. We also have some throws that come off of our runs, the RPOs that go with it. So we're just going to stay in this attacking mode, Liam, and try to put as much pressure on a defense as we can. But the quarterback in the run game is still a big part of that, even if he's just carrying out a fake, knowing that there is a pull element that could happen on some plays. So we'll stay consistent with that.
Yeah, it's like watching. I think, was it last night I was watching the game where Troy Aikman made this point that football now, especially when you get in the red zone, it's like watching Oklahoma play in the 80s, the option. And maybe that was a little shot at Barry Switzer, who recruited Aikman to be a drop back passer and then quickly switched back to the option once Aikman got hurt and Aikman transferred to UCLA, and the rest is history. But the ability to freeze the defense on the option is so big when you have Jaden there. Mariota can run, but he just doesn't bring the fear that Jaden Daniels does. And now that Jaden's shook off the rust and is showing he can deal with the knee brace and so forth, I think that bodes very well for him going into the Bears game, who, again, are last in the league in giving up yards per carry, giving up a league worst 6.6 yards a carry, and only the Dolphins have allowed more rushing yards per game. So this is something that I think they're going to capitalize on Monday night. Now, Luke McCaffrey caught a big pass on Sunday, and he's become a much bigger part of the passing game where they're playing without Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown. So, best case scenario, we don't see as much of McCaffrey on Monday night as we have in the past couple of games. But if they need him, Quinn can't say enough good things about him. And also, this is something interesting that he said. You would think that transitioning from quarterback to wide receiver would be a full advantage. Like, exactly what's happening on every play and what everybody has to do when you're a quarterback, which is what he was for a couple of years in college before transitioning to wide receiver. In explaining what McCaffrey has given them yesterday, Quinn actually said that it may have been initially a little bit of a negative that McCaffrey played quarterback in college.
Coming in from him, with his background at quarterback, almost seeing too much, but then he really got into the details at receiver, at the technique, at the specific routes. But there's one thing that separates him, Howard, I think that he has, and he can feel it, it is this competitive spirit. In a game 2 weeks ago, I saw him catch a touchdown pass and then go down and cover a kick and be in on a tackle. And I think that speaks to just the competitor he is. So yesterday, had a kickoff return out to the 40. Bill had a long run that I thought he had a fantastic block, towards the end on the sideline when he came back out to the right. And then we showed that at the team meeting onto the field post today. So 3 different plays, one on teams, one on the blocking downfield, and one on the pass. And a lot of it wasn't, designed, unusual or tricky, Howard. It was just honestly just going out and just competing. And he really stands himself apart into that way. And he's one of our most consistent guys in that department. And it definitely keeps showing itself.
There was a feeling when they took McCaffrey that he would become Julian Edelman, and maybe he will. He's not quite there yet, but he's showing signs of that. And the fact that he can do so many different things, returning kicks, filling in at wide receiver, playing special teams, making tackles, that's huge. And maybe he'll eventually become that guy. But, sometimes it takes a couple of games like this to really boost you up. The other thing about, wide receivers, look at the history of the great wide receivers in the game. It took him a while to get going. Like Michael Irvin, probably his 4th year, didn't really become a Michael Irvin. Jerry Rice couldn't catch anything his rookie year with San Francisco, hands of stone. So the fact that it's taken him a little while to get to this point, I don't think is anything to be concerned about. And his contributions, if they become bigger the rest of the year, it's going to be huge for them. A little baseball here. I did want to mention the Phillies. To be honest, haven't really been watching much of the baseball playoffs, a little bit here and there. And I think that what baseball has done is taken a regular season sport and turned it into March Madness, which is good for television, I guess, although they're really playing second fiddle to football. Football's every night now. You have college football, which is getting bigger and bigger. So that's chewing up the Saturday night. Sunday night, you got the NFL. Monday night, you got the NFL. Thursday night, you got the NFL. And now hockey season is starting, so that'll chip away a little bit at your base. So you're looking at, trying to get your games to matter like Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe Friday, although they have some pretty big college football games on Friday as well. And it's just round after round. It used to be that you had two leagues, American League, National League. Winner of the American League played the National League for the World Series. That was it. Then they went to each league having two divisions. Okay, you had a best-of-5 series. Then you got to the World Series. And then the divisional playoffs begat the NLCS and the ALCS. And now you have the wild card, the divisional series, the NLCS, ALCS, and World Series. And it's November. And you're in the teeth of football season. But this is what baseball has done. But you look at the Phillies. And I can't help but think of what Bryce Harper said. It was over 10 years ago. It was in the offseason between 14 and 15 in Washington when Max Scherzer arrived. And Max Scherzer got a contract which now looks like one of the greatest bargains in history. It was $210 million. He went, whoa! And half of it was deferred. So they weren't having to pay it out. And Scherzer proved to be everything the Nationals could have hoped he would be and helped to deliver the World Series in 2019. But in the spring of 2015, Bryce Harper, a rising young star in baseball, came up in 2012 and played on playoff teams with the Nats. And going into the 2015 season, he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and he tells them, dude, where's my ring? Now we got Scherzer. I mean, what else do we need? And in fact, in 2015, they didn't even make the playoffs, and the season ended with Jonathan Papelbon trying to choke Bryce Harper on the bench. 2016 and 17, they lose in the National League Divisional Series. No playoffs in 2018. Bryce Harper is gone. Now he's with the Phillies, and it wasn't like Scherzer didn't hold up his end of the bargain. He won the freaking Cy Young in 16 and 17 and was an all-star all 4 of those years he played with Bryce Harper here. Harper leaves. They go on to win the World Series. So be it. He goes to Philadelphia. He's talking about them becoming a dynasty and how he's going to get all these great players there, and he does get Trey Turner back with him, and they're a factor every year, and they've been to the World Series, but more than a decade after Bryce Harper said to Sports Illustrated, dude, where's my ring? There's no ring, and there's likely to be no ring this year. Phillies are down in a best-of-5 series, 2-0. They had a ninth-inning comeback last night, but they came up short, lost 4-3. And now they're a loss away from the season ending. And Harper and his high-priced mates have not delivered. $700 million, $709 million for the top 3 hitters in the order. That's, length of contract, but still almost $1 billion, $750 million invested into 3 players who performed well during the year, but through the first 2 games of these playoffs, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, and Bryce Harper have combined for 2 singles, 4 walks, 11 strikeouts in 25 plate appearances. Harper 1 for 7 with a walk and 3 strikeouts so far in this series. So I recall the quote, dude, where's my ring? More than a decade later, he's still waiting for a ring. Scherzer has 2, with the possibility of getting 3 this year, though he's not on the playoff roster right now for the Blue Jays. They may activate him if they move on into the next series, and they are looking like they are going to do it because what they did to the Yankees was awesome in the first 2 games. I mean, they scored a total of 23 runs in those 2 games. The Blue Jays winning the second game 13-7 doesn't really tell you the story. I think it was 11-0 before the Yankees finally got on the board. And teams that go up 2-0 in a best-of-5 postseason series have won 80 of the 90 times that's happened, including 54 sweeps. New York did it twice. 2001, led by Derek Jeter and his backhand flip in Game 3 against Oakland, and in 2017 against Cleveland. Among teams ahead 2-0 in the current 2-2-1 format, 31 of 34 have advanced. So the Yankees have their work cut out for them tonight, as Carlos Rondon will be on the mound as they try to stay alive in their series against the Blue Jays. So that's where we are in the baseball. Last night, Milwaukee beat the Cubs. That was a surprise to some. But, sooner or later we're going to have a World Series. But what they have done is taken the grind of the 162-game regular season and turned it into, March Madness is really what it is. I mean, and it's a lot like March Madness in that, you used to have only, 25 teams qualifying for the NCAA tournament. Now you have 68, and they keep talking about going to 96. And it doesn't matter that much what you do in the regular season. Just get in and then see how things develop once you get into the playoffs. And I don't think that's really what the spirit of baseball should be all about. But I guess in this day and age where television is the tail that wags the dog, that's the way it works. And whatever you do in the regular season doesn't really matter that much. And the Phillies, who have been building, and put together a great regular season, only to see it fall apart in a short playoff against the Dodgers, and to have their stars, their big, highly paid stars, come up small. It's something you have to live with. And over the course of a season, you will see that. You will see the best team in baseball lose a series or lose 3 straight or 4 straight to the worst team. It happens. It just happens. All right, coming up, what has happened to the Baltimore Ravens? Mark Maske with an analysis of the hot seat for John Harbaugh and what Harbaugh says about his struggling team right now. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Just saw this on Twitter. Can you imagine having a job for 25 years where one of the most important things in your occupation is not having people know what you look like, particularly people in the restaurant industry? And Tom Sietsma, who has been the Washington Post food critic for 25 years, replaced Phyllis Richmond, who at one time was married to a cousin of mine. Tom Sietsma has been doing this job for all these years, and when you are a restaurant critic for a major newspaper, you are dining out probably every night, right? I mean, you got to do it to do a thorough job, especially if you're doing like one restaurant. You can't just eat there once. You got to get it on a good night and possibly a bad night to give it a full review. And you can't have the restaurant people know what you look like, because if you walk in the restaurant, the word gets to the kitchen, hey, you better get this right because we got Tom Sietsma sitting down. So he has written his final column, which I have not read, but he does show his face. And God bless him for all the dining that he does. Doesn't look like he's overweight. Good for him. And he's, has kind of a average middle-aged white guy look, shaved head. Nothing really stands out about him. So I guess if he were to, and that's another thing, if you're going to be a restaurant critic, you can't really have like a distinguishing character, like a big handlebar mustache. You can't do anything like that. Or like Gene Shalit had that big hair thing and the mustache. No, you can't do any of that stuff. So congratulations. I haven't read the column. I don't know whether this was something that was forced upon him or he decided to do, but 25 years of keeping your identity secret, probably not the easiest thing to do. And, it would seem like that would be a dream job, to eat in a restaurant every single night. But after a while, it probably becomes a job just like any other. Not just like any other, but it's, oh, God, French food again tonight. Well, I got to get this review in. Oh, my God, I got to eat lobster tonight. Oh, man, I just had lobster 2 nights ago. Yeah, it's the way. And somebody else is paying for it. That's another thing that's cool. Like, that's you talk about a fringe benefit. I mean, how much do you think of your average annual budget do you spend on food between groceries and eating out? Pretty significant, I would think. Yeah, I would think so. But Tom Sietsma never had to pay for any of that. All expenses, all expenses paid for the job. And for 25 years, he did obviously a good job and kept his identity a secret. Or maybe there were some top restaurants that had his picture in the kitchen, like if this man walks in, make sure everything's perfect. I don't know. But good for him. Good for him for a great run at the Washington Post. John Harbaugh has had a great run with the Baltimore Ravens. This is his 18th season as head coach there. They have been a playoff team most years. They did win a Super Bowl, but that's been a while. That was after the 2012 season, relatively early in his run. And now they're a mess. Lamar Jackson is hurt. Cooper Rush played this past weekend against a not very good Houston Texans team. He threw 3 interceptions, and they had their doors blown off 44-10. The team is 1-4. And this is about what he can say after looking at his team on the field on Sunday.
Got beaten every way you can get beat. Very disappointed with that. Did not expect to see that. Thought we'd play a lot better than that based on the way we practiced. And hats off to them. They played a really good game, made a bunch of plays, did a great job on first down. We did not. Built a rhythm really throughout the game. We did not. So just a complete disappointment. And we're going to have to find a way to turn it around and figure out who we are this next week and then into the bye. And after the bye, we're going to have more than half the season left, and we're going to have to find ourselves. So that's what our aim will be going forward.
Well, they got the Rams coming in this weekend. That's in Baltimore. Then they have the bye week. And, you're looking at a team that could be 1-5. Now, if Lamar Jackson doesn't play in this game, that'll have given him 3 weeks to recover from a hamstring injury. They're also missing a number of other stars, and these are highly paid veterans. So that's another thing when you have stars. It's great if they're playing, like the example Terry McLaurin, who they're 1-1 without him. But if they're not playing, that's a lot of money sitting out of games. So they're missing Kyle Hamilton, who's the highest priced safety in the history of the NFL. Quarterback Marlon Humphrey, veteran who's been around. Roquan Smith, who they traded for with Chicago a couple of years at the deadline, gave him the big contract that he wanted. And left tackle Ronnie Stanley. He's been hurt a lot during his career. They're not playing. And this doesn't look like it's going to solve itself. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. So what does that mean for John Harbaugh and his future? Now, you hear this about the two teams, the same division, every year, what's going to happen in Pittsburgh, what's going to happen in Baltimore. And this is what Mark Maske writes about what could happen in Baltimore with John Harbaugh. He said there were already whispers about Harbaugh's job security. Such talk could advance beyond the whisper stage now. That process began Sunday on social media, but it's premature. No one should forget the Ravens have reached the playoffs a dozen times in Harbaugh's first 17 seasons. They won 6 AFC North titles. They have reached 4 AFC championship games. They won a Super Bowl in 2012, yet that Super Bowl victory is a fading memory. And yes, the Ravens have a 3-5 postseason record with Lamar Jackson as their starter. They failed to topple the New England Patriots dynasty. They have not halted the Kansas City Chiefs run. This season could continue to unravel and be yet another year without a Super Bowl appearance for Jackson. Even so, it's not time for a discussion about Harbaugh's job. Not yet. Not with a coach who's been this successful and at a time when the injury list is so long and debilitating. The Ravens could get Jackson and others back after the bye week and make a late season run towards a playoff berth. That must play itself out. Sometimes things simply run their course with the coach and the team. It's possible that could be the case for the Ravens and Harbaugh after the season, but it's certainly not the case now. Okay, but, could it be an Andy Reid situation? Now, Andy Reid, unlike John Harbaugh, didn't win a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. He got them to the Super Bowl. He was a great coach. They had great teams year after year. They were contenders all the time. Didn't do it. Okay, Philadelphia has enough. They move on from Andy Reid. Andy Reid goes to Kansas City and builds a dynasty there. Could John Harbaugh still do that? Well, it's possible. Andy Reid, they're from the same tree. In fact, Harbaugh was Andy Reid's special teams coordinator and defensive coordinator in his last year in Philadelphia. So that could be the case. But what we are seeing maybe is just like the end of the road here. And we've been talking about this with Pittsburgh for a long time with Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin I think he won the Super Bowl the year before, wasn't it the 2011 season that Pittsburgh won its last Super Bowl, and he's stayed around, and they're they're in there contending every year, but they don't quite do it. They always have winning seasons. But these are two guys who are obviously great coaches. Maybe both of them wind up in the Hall of Fame. But, NFL, as Jerry Glanville once said, not for long. And maybe it's not for that much longer for two coaches who have been in this a long, long time. And I've been hearing this from Baltimore people for years, kvetching about John Harbaugh. And could this be the breaking point? I don't think he's going to get fired during the season, no matter how bad it gets. That's just not the way Steve Bisciotti does business. But after 18 years, we could be seeing the end of the road for John Harbaugh. This, I wonder how forced this was, because I think that Arizona Cardinals coach Jonathan Gannon had every right to wig out about his running back, Amari DiMercato, dropping the ball just short of the goal line and what would have been a 72-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. And that opened up the floodgates for Tennessee, the worst team in the league, to win their first game 22-21 on a last-second field goal. If the touchdown would have stood, and if they had kept the extra point, they would have been up 28-6 with 12 minutes and 40 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Teams up by 22 in the fourth quarter are 1,276-1 over the last 25 years. So it would have been virtually impossible for Arizona to lose this game. All he had to do was take the ball over the goal line. Didn't do that. It was seen on the sidelines, Gannon walking over to DiMercato as he was being consoled by left tackle Paris Johnson Jr. And then you see Gannon get into his face. He appears to rip into DiMercato, continuing his rant as he begins walking away. As Gannon walks away, he appears to make contact with DiMercato's right arm. Gannon said yesterday, I woke up this morning, didn't feel great about it, honestly. I just told the team I kind of let the moment of what happened get the better of me. Obviously, I try to be emotionally stable and calm because my job is to solve problems during a game and lead the charge on it. So it's not really who I am, who I want to be, and I told the guys that today it's my mistake, yada, yada, yada. Well, I know some old school coaches who would have cut DiMercato. One of them, Bill Parcells, and the other one would have been Jimmy Johnson. I think Jimmy Johnson would have cut. Even if you think this guy can be a productive player for you at some point, he killed you right there. He made a bonehead play, and then after the game, Gannon was asked something to the effect of coaching this. He said, "Oh yeah, we coach those kind of plays." What is there to coach? Just take the damn ball across the goal line. That's all you need to do. If you're running wide open, have your celebration. Do whatever you want. But take the ball over the goal line first. It doesn't count as a touchdown unless you take it across. I also read something where the NFL Players Association is looking into this. So they're going to protect bonehead guys that much? I mean, he didn't hit him with a 2x4. He yelled at him. This is abuse. God. Yeah. What an absolute bonehead to do what he did. And if I were a teammate, I don't know how I'd look him in the eye in the locker room. I really don't. I don't quite get that. Coming up, Chase Daniel asked a question by Dan Patrick that I think we all want to ask of some of these analysts. Don't go away.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.
Graham is up at 11. So I have a friend who at one time worked as a mechanic. And he would, have people come in while he was working on cars, friends of his, and he used a term which really fit. He said they would talk out of their ear, meaning that they had been around people fixing cars long enough that they had certain terminology that they picked up. So when they'd be talking about repairs for a car, they would sound like they knew what they were talking about, but they were only kind of recycling things that they had heard. And this kind of infectious disease has reached this business as well, that you pick up some terms along the way from working with ex-football players, and you throw them around like you know what you're talking about. Now, it's okay for football players to do it, although when you're broadcasting a game, you don't really want to do that because you're sometimes throwing around terms where you lose the audience. And Dan has Patrick has a great understanding of this, having worked in television. He didn't play in the NFL, but he's worked with a lot of analysts over the years. Chris Cooley worked in town here for a number of years after he finished playing for the Redskins. And what he would do was film analysis. And there were some young guys who would sit at his feet and watch what he did, learning about the game, which was a good thing. But they would pick up some of Cooley's terminology that he learned over his, 8 or 9 year NFL playing career and his 4 years of playing in college. I mean, he really understands the game. He's not doing it anymore. He's living like in Montana building houses or something. But I thought he was a really smart analyst and could really, break down tape. And so these young guys who had radio shows, they would listen to him and they would talk out of their ear. They would use some of this terminology, which made them sound like they knew what they were talking about. Chase Daniel actually does know what he's talking about. Didn't play a whole lot, but he was in the NFL for 14 years. And he was in the so-called quarterback room with some of the best. He spent some years with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was with the Lions, and he was with the Bears. Actually was first selected as an undrafted free agent here, coming out of Missouri, where he had a good career. He's very small. That didn't help him for the NFL. Wound up as a backup with the Saints and kind of bounced around the league, but was able to learn a lot about professional football sitting in these tape rooms working with the other quarterbacks. And so when he was on Dan Patrick's show yesterday, he started throwing around some football terminology, and good for Dan for kind of getting him to clarify this.
I'm going to be the guy who says, can you explain the 22 personnel and the 21 personnel and the 12 personnel and the 11 personnel?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dan, when we're saying 12 personnel, the first digit talks to the amount of running backs in the game. So 12 personnel, one running back. The second digit always talks to the amount of tight ends in your group. So 12 personnel is one back, 2 tight ends, and you need 5 skill players, Dan. So how many receivers is that? 2, right? And then so if you go 22 personnel, which is it just means heavy personnel, it's 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, and only 1 receiver. There's also 13 personnel, which I think the Chiefs do a good bit of, 1 back, 3 tight ends. And I think you're sort of seeing a resurgence of these heavier personnel, just talking about trends overall in the National Football League, because so many teams play just nickel defense. So they have 5 defensive backs on the field at all times rather than 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. And so when teams are playing nickel personnel, 5 DBs, even to 22 personnel, 2 backs, 2 tight ends, you're seeing teams run the football a lot more because teams are so sick and tired of guys just sitting back in 2 high safety looks and saying, hey, try to throw the ball overhead. They're just like, we can't do it. And that's why I think you're seeing a resurgence of the play action pass under center game as well. So these are the trends I'm seeing. I hope I explained it good enough.
You did, and I've been saying this for years, that eventually you're going to have an offense that's going to be all power. They're going to run it down your throat because everybody's playing that prevent defense, and you got quicker guys, not beefier guys up front. And now you're seeing that with Saquon Barkley. I mean, you're seeing the resurgence in running the football there.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that explanation. I think
of course.
Yeah. And when you do games on TV, just make sure that you speak our language, not your language.
Yeah. Good, Dan. Thanks for doing that, because sometimes you're too afraid to actually question that because people will think you're a dope. As many interviewers say, there is no such thing as a dumb question. If you have a question, ask the question, and don't just blitz by when he says 12 personnel. Find out what it is. good. And don't talk over your audience's head. Just because you know, don't expect them to know. And the people who are in this business who do it and pick up that terminology and act like, it's always been the way they talk when they watch football, you sound like an idiot. You really do. And good for Chase Daniel for explaining that, and good for Dan Patrick for asking him to do that. Just jumping in your car, I was talking about the Heisman race, and Greg McElroy says right now there's no front runner for that. Things just got interesting here with this little nugget from Pete Thamel, who covers college football for ESPN. Sources say Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer is pushing to return this week for the game against Texas. There's a belief that his return is possible as he's reacted well to surgery. He had surgery on a broken bone in his right throwing hand, took place nearly 2 weeks ago. Playing against Texas would dovetail with the most optimistic return timelines, as he'd been out 17 days after surgery. That would be another bad thing for Arch Manning, having to face a player who 2 weeks ago Mel Kiper said was clearly the Heisman Trophy frontrunner, John Mateer. He comes back for Oklahoma. Maybe things get a little bit different there. How about that? Wow, that throws an interesting little monkey wrench into perhaps those plans. We got NBA starting up, and we got the Wizards. They're going to have their first exhibition game against Toronto on Sunday. They're going to open the season the 22nd against Milwaukee. We're in such a malaise here with the NBA. You may be able to name a couple of players on the Wizards. I wonder what the television ratings are for their games. Whatever you want to say about the announcers, I thought, the stupidity of getting rid of Steve Buckhantz and Phil Chenier years ago was really ridiculous, and they've churned and burned. Chris Miller, does a fine job. There's no issue with that. They don't really have a regular analyst, it seems. It seems he's always working with somebody else every night, whether it's, Glenn Consor, Christy Winters, somebody. I don't know. I mean, you used to be able to Buck and Chenier. That was to me comfort TV. The Wizards, they had some good years. They had mostly bad years, but you knew these guys. Okay. So anyway, that's the season starting up. According to the people that run the team, it's going to be another. They don't say it this way, but it's the foundational building year. It's the process. You got to keep getting top draft picks to build your team up. They, were in position to get number one this year. Didn't work out. Cooper Flagg winds up with the Dallas Mavericks. Talk about a perfect situation after the disaster of the Luka Doncic trade. And now they wind up with a player who may be the next superstar in the league. Mark Spears, not Marcus Spears. Marcus Spears does football for ESPN. Mark Spears is an NBA analyst for ESPN. And he was on the NBA Today yesterday, and he questioned the lack of hype for Cooper Flagg. I mean, we did have an awful lot of hype for Victor Wembanyama when he came in the league a couple of years ago. I would say this about Wembanyama versus Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg is somewhat familiar to people here because he played at Duke, and Duke was on TV all the time, and they went into the NCAA tournament. And we were hearing about Cooper Flagg because he was on a team of players who played against Olympic guys, and they were walking away saying about a 17-year-old, wow, this kid can really play. So Spears is questioning the lack of hype for him. He says, where is the choo-choo, the Cooper Flagg train? I don't get it. NBA, what are you doing? Why aren't you promoting this guy? Last year, I saw him working out in Vegas. He was on a select team with Brandon Miller and Trey Murphy and Jalen Suggs, and one of the coaches told me he was the best player on the roster. And he may be, and I have seen a couple of videos where he has been very impressive in practice. Don't sleep on this kid. Says Spears. One season at Duke, averaged 19 points, shot 48% from the field, 38% from three. Freshman of the year, and U.S. Basketball Writers National Player of the Year. Great talent. But I think the NBA suffers from a lot of things that are going on in sports now, including the fact that there's nobody staying for 4 years in college. And so, Cooper Flagg and race does play a factor in this, whether you want to believe it or not. But when a white superstar comes in the league, there's great hype. And here's a guy who is the first American-born white player to be drafted number one since Kent Benson in 1977, coming out of Indiana. As a junior, he had been part of the undefeated team, the last undefeated team in NCAA history when they won the 1976 championship. And Cooper Flagg should be along those lines. But the problem is you don't see these guys long enough in college. Like Bill Walton coming out of college at UCLA in 1974, and they only played 3 years then. Freshmen were ineligible, but 3 straight years of going to the Final Four, the 88-game win streak, the whole thing. The hype for him was through the roof. The ABA said, we like him so much that we're willing to put a team in San Diego, where he's from, and fill it up with his UCLA teammates. They were looking for that kind of drawing card. They wanted to do it before his senior year, and they were going to pay him, I think, a lot more money than the Portland Trailblazers paid him to be the number one pick a year later, 1974. And he, throughout his career, dealt with a lot of injuries and never really reached what he could have been. But when he was healthy, he's among the greatest to ever play. There's no question about that. Cooper Flagg could be that. Maybe not, but we roll on such a hype train all the time that it's difficult for any kind of hype to stand out. Like I'm just talking about Arch Manning. We've been hyping Arch Manning for 6 or 7 years. When we get to the part where he actually plays, he's not that good. Cooper Flagg, you start to hype him, but a lot of other things get in the way. And the sample size from 1 year from Duke, I mean, they didn't win the national championship. They didn't make the Final Four, I don't think so. So that probably plays into it. But, I think Spear has a point here. I think it's interesting that the NBA has not really jumped on this. And, you can subtly do the race thing, which I think does play into this, that the league, an American-born white superstar like a Larry Bird, who was actually drafted number 8. He was drafted as a junior eligible because, remember, he'd gone to Indiana, didn't play, and so he actually was a college player for technically 5 years when he came out. And the Celtics took him in the 1978 draft, junior eligible, waited a year, signed him before the draft, and the rest is history. So we'll see. But can Cooper Flagg do for the Dallas Mavericks what Larry Bird did for the Celtics? We'll see. But so far, with the season about to start, the NBA really hasn't jumped on the hype choo-choo train. Interesting. Bram is coming up next. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.